All right, Tennessee Titans draft recap. This one, we're going to get a little bit more depth into individual players because they did not get as many individual players in this draft class. Only 6 picks, which the average team actually gets 8 draft picks because of comp picks. So, you only start off with 7. There's enough extra picks thrown in there. The average team it's actually like 8.09 is the official amount that the average team gets. So there are 2 picks behind that, but I think that they, made some good selections. And the first pick was one I just loved. In fact, these first 3 I'm a huge fan of, and I really like this entire draft, despite the fact that they didn't have a ton of picks. Obviously, you want more picks, but I really do like this draft a lot and what they were able to do with it. Let's just go down the list. What you see on the screen is each player they drafted, what position they play, where they were drafted, and where they were expected to be drafted given the consensus big board rankings. So Peter Skoronski, the tackle out of Northwestern, who was picked 11th, projected to go 12th. He was my favorite tackle on this, or favorite offensive lineman, I should say, in this draft class. I do care about analytics when it comes to offensive linemen. They do a good job at translating to the next level. Guys with good analytics in college tend to be good at the NFL level at specific positions, one of them being offensive line. His analytics were the best in the class, so by a good margin. So that's what I love about him so much, and I think his tape backs it up. He doesn't have the elite physical traits. That's why he fell a little bit. People love traits. If you evaluate based on traits, you're not going to be a huge fan of his. But I'm not as concerned about that. One of the other critiques about him is, could he end up just being a guard instead of a tackle? But again, that's not something I'm concerned about. You need 5 offensive linemen, and guards add just as much value as tackles do. People just despite the fact that that's not what the consensus believes, it is true. There's data to back it up. Maybe I'll make a video on that in the future, but for now, I digress. I think, again, position of need as well. Kind of one of those great situations where one of the best players happens to fall to you, also happens to be a position of need. Just kind of a win-win there. They didn't have to trade up to make it happen. Huge fan of that. They didn't select Will Levis with that pick, but they made sure they went up at pick 33 to get Will Levis, who was projected to go 10th. So, weird fall here by Will Levis. One thing I'll mention is, I think it's a question of why not trade up to the end of the first round to get Will Levis, because when you do that, you get a 5th-year option, meaning that, after 4 years, you can then, or it's actually after 3 years, you can then choose to get him for his 5th year. But the thing is, the 5th-year option is not as good as it used to be. I believe for quarterbacks, we're talking over $30 million for a 5th-year option if they made a Pro Bowl, which, Tyler Huntley has made a Pro Bowl. So the 5th-year option, not what it used to be. So that's one of it. Also, allegedly, they did still try to do it because there still is value in that, getting that extra year, that extra weapon potentially. They made an effort to trade up with some of these other teams, but the price wasn't there. They felt like they could wait and still get him at pick 33, which is probably the right move. Listen, what are they doing with Will Levis? Here's what I think is happening. I think they're going to give him a year in practice and just see what he can do, see what they like about with him. Ryan Tannehill is the starter next year. You're paying him a ton of money, and he still is going to be the best quarterback on your roster next year. There's no denying that. He is your starter this following year. If you like what Will Levis does in practice, you move off of Tannehill, which you can do after this year. His contract is essentially up. There's a little bit of dead cap that carries over for future years, but basically it's over after this year. So then you start the Will Levis era. If you like him, get 3 years of a rookie deal, and hopefully he can play well then. If you don't like him, then okay, you burned a pick 33. It happens. I wouldn't be overly concerned because, it's worth the risk to potentially get a franchise quarterback. So Will Levis was not my favorite quarterback. I did not have a first-round grade on him, but a huge fan of picking him up here at 33. Tyjae Spears is someone who, I did speculate a little bit on my video I made about him, where I have a full film study about actually all these top 3 picks. I have a full film study on this channel. Just search their name in Jackson Kruger Sports, and it'll come out if you want to hear more of my thoughts on those players. But he's someone who I did speculate a little bit is he a Derrick Henry replacement potentially? There's been talks of trading Henry. Is this now someone who can come in and play well? And if not, I think it could be. I don't love his blocking enough to feel great about him being a pure third down back, but I do like his receiving a good deal. And Henry tends to not always do that stuff, so maybe he could do that, but also could be an effective player, with other stuff. So I don't know. Makes some sense to me. I would love it if they traded Derrick Henry and got a young running back with round 3. To me, that's just good football. That's just smart decision making. Personally, good business. So we'll see what they do. Josh Wile, not sure exactly how you pronounce his name. This is where, picks were, not quite as notable, not quite as big names, but still important picks here. With pick 147, they get the 156 rated prospect, Josh Wile, tight end who, a player who, looking at his analytics and things of that nature, not really sure exactly what they see. He's 6'6", so that's good. 6'6", 248. Ran a 4.69, so we can say he ran a 4.6, but barely. Interesting prospect, I guess. I think maybe just the height is what they're looking at, and get another guy in the tight end room. Potentially could be sort of a backup tight end, perhaps, and maybe someone who can play some special teams as well. Seems like kind of one of those underwhelming picks, because you like the guys always, as a fan, you want to see a guy who has this sky high potential but just hasn't fully reached it. Someone who maybe had an injury and that's why they fell, but maybe they'll be a star. Yeah, a lot of times, though, these are the smart picks. These are the guys who end up just being good depth pieces, which is what you need. Then we have a very fascinating pick. So Jalen Duncan, who is drafted at tackle. You do have to wonder if he'll play tackle or guard. Did not have incredible analytics or anything, but he was projected to go 91st. Ends up falling all the way to 186. So while he's not necessarily someone I would have been rushing out to draft at pick 91, when we're here, it's definitely, totally worth the risk. And another thing about him, too, is he has the athletic traits here. He just doesn't have the hands, really. It doesn't have the technique, which is something you can teach. I wouldn't bank on teaching it, but it is something you can teach. So, what I talked about, the last pick, this is kind of one where you can talk yourself into maybe getting a steal here if it works out, with a 6th round pick 186, getting someone who could potentially be, a starting offensive lineman at some point at a position of weakness. That's a great value, potentially. So big fan of that one. And then finally, Colton Dowell, who I could barely find anything on Colton Dowell, trying to read it up. He wasn't on the consensus big board at all. So, don't know what happened there. Gets drafted round 7. I'm assuming he's just some special teamer because, again, PFF did not have a page for him. He did not have a page on the NFL draft profile and was not on the consensus big board. I'm not convinced he's a real person. I'm not. Maybe he's a fake person, potentially. I don't know. But yeah, as a whole, though, the first 5 selections, big fan of. First 3, I'm a real big fan of. So, I think they did a good job with what they got, and they got some players who should be, this could be a franchise-altering draft, but even if it isn't, it should still be a good draft that gets them value and moves them forward for the next 4 years until they got to start paying them. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.